What's up, Clitorati? I'm in the studio with my two favorite bees. We got Katie in the house. We got
What's
Madison in the
up?
house.
Well, hello.
And today we're going to get real. You know, it's 2024. We all just went through a pandemic. We all go through different seasons of our lives. And the three of us were having a conversation that we felt was a really important episode to have. And that it's the fact that there is a link between our erotic, our creative energy, and our overall well-being. And our intimate experiences often mirror the ebb and flow of our daily lives. So if you think of it this way, our sex lives are like a snapshot of everything else that is happening around us. And if there's a hiccup in the sensual department, it usually points to a broader issue elsewhere. And rarely it is just about sex. It's the entire holistic connection of the web that is our life. So really buckle up because we're going to talk about how to disrupt that, specifically in the realm of masturbation. I am going to tell on myself. I'll be really honest. My masturbation routine has gone down the tubes, you guys. I know how important it is. I know the health benefits. We've done a ton of episodes about that already. And so today we really want to talk about if you're in that boat, if you're rarely masturbating, or if you're just feeling completely disconnected from not even the sexual, but the sensual aspect of yourselves. We're going to do a deep dive and give you some creative strategies, some mindset techniques, and really just pleasure coach our way through this, really dynamic conversation, and hope that this episode makes a difference for y'all.
And if you are like regularly masturbating, you've been masturbating, but maybe you've been a little bit like needing a revamp. This episode is also going to rock your clitoris in so many ways. So we're very excited for this episode. It's going to be a juicy one. And I just want to give a little like sneak peek into the concept of like routine versus ritual. And so definitely stay tuned for later in the conversation. We're going to get more into specific tips.
Yes. A little bit of something for everyone.
As soon as you're saying that, Lindsay, that you're like telling on yourself that you haven't been like having a masturbation practice, I'm just like, ugh, is there shame there? Or do you feel like, is it like I feel like you should need it, or that you need to have it? Or does it feel like there's something actually missing? Because I too am in the same boat. And I have not missed it. I've been finding other ways to connect to my body that have actually been drawing me closer to my partner to want sex more. And it hasn't included masturbation. Not that obviously masturbation is wonderful. And like there's certain circumstances that have people not, have that ebb and flow. So
yeah. I would say for me specifically, I can only speak for myself. If I'm looking at, and this is the first conversation I wanted to have, was forgive yourself. Don't put pressure on yourself, but it is a mirror, right? And there could be a plethora of reasons, depending on, you could be extra stressed, which is definitely was my case. It's stress induced. And, or you could be having hormonal stuff. That's actually another thing I'm to take a look at. If you're feeling low libido, it could be hormonal changes, could be relationship issues, medical conditions. We all know that, from our good friend who came on and talked about hormones, that antidepressants are a huge factor, any kind of medication. So, setting aside anything like that, I know for me personally, it is a stress thing. And it's not that I am shaming myself for not masturbating, but I do miss being connected to my sensuality.
So without the masturbation, you don't feel connected to your sensuality.
It's not that. Because I'm not connected to my sensuality, I'm not masturbating.
I see. The other way around.
Right. So that if there's there's a root cause. The non-masturbation is just a symptom of me not vibing as high as I want to vibe in the areas that are important to me. And so a couple of things about that, we talked about really identifying the root cause, forgiving yourself, and not putting pressure on yourself. I think that before we even get to the masturbation conversation, we want to talk about the sensual conversation and some of the things that may be blocking you. And the first thing is a mindset. You've heard us talk about a pleasure mindset with our coachees and inside of our program. And the first thing that we talk about a lot of times is really letting go or shifting your expectations. I know for myself and a lot of our coachees, people have an expectation of what a healthy or thriving masturbation practice looks like. And one of the common things that we hear is, well, if I start and I get interrupted or I quit halfway through, that means I failed. Right? Or if I don't do it enough, that means I'm failing at my masturbation practice. Or if I didn't orgasm, right? I know for me a lot of times, or maybe, like if you don't have the big O, something that you can do that I'm going to start taking on is making a sensual practice more about exploring. And a way to really connect a huge topic that came up in our last coaching call with our participants was body confidence. And I think that without external validation, either way, we really rely on our own thoughts, which can lead to self-doubt. So one of the things that I know that has stopped me is I don't feel sexy. Right? Why do I want to put myself in a sensual place where I don't feel sexy? We say sexy is a state of mind, but I think that it's really important work. One of my favorite practices that we do is exploring your own personalized definition of what sexiness is. Right? Be the observer of what you think is sexy about yourself and others. And one of the exercises that we did with our participants is we had them interview 5 people in their lives. And they just asked them, what defines sexiness to you? And I think you guys participated in this, sexy. And I was shocked by the answers, especially from men or counter people that I thought most people didn't talk about physical looks. We really have been taught, a flat stomach and thighs that look a certain way is what's sexy. But I think if you can do the work to really redefine what sexiness is, then it opens up a portal to start connecting to your own personal sensuality and allowing your sensual practice, I'm going to call it a sensual practice, right? To be one where you're exploring rather than having it be results based. And I do think that leads me into my next point. Inside of pleasure positive living, we really are about creating a holistic approach to sexual well-being. Today, maybe we got you into this episode because we're talking about masturbation, but we're really talking about your overall sexual well-being, like Katie was speaking to, right? It's much more than masturbation. And I think something that we need to acknowledge is that we go through different seasons of life and we are always new versions of ourselves. What we have worked on in the past maybe just isn't working for us now. So if you're emerging from a transition or your desires are changing, I have a couple of questions, and maybe we can have a group discussion about this to really ask yourself and conduct some pleasure research. And because it's okay to be in a different season of your sensuality. And the first question I have is, what is different about this new version of me? What has changed about you? And what does this version of me need to feel turned on? Really just getting in touch with yourself. What feels good now? Because what felt good a few months ago or a few years ago might be different for you now.
Absolutely. They can expire and then expand and change. And it reminds me of one of the rules of pussy, where pussy can change its mind.
Yeah.
And I think we can all take that on, It's genderless, that we get to change our minds. We're ever evolving. And these two questions are such great self-reflection points to just assess, like, where are you at without making it wrong? Just this new moment. Who gives a fuck what it used to be?
Yep. I think, comparing yourself to the past is a trap.
What I love about this conversation,
don't do that.
Yeah, it's normalizing all of that. Like, it's normalizing. It doesn't matter what your lifestyle is, how much money you have, who you're dating, what your status is, body confidence, all these things, low sex drive, ebbing and flowing. How do you we're normalizing these conversations. And that's what I think is the biggest takeaway. Like, we're still hearing these things like, this is normal. And anyone can feel like a sexy badass one day and then maybe not feel as confident the next moment, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So I think
or
just
like normalizing
like, that and having and
We're
how
cyclical.
to create a lifestyle of incorporating little simple things that add up to a really more pleasurable way to walk through life intentionally.
And I think that if you're really in a season, look, I know we're a few years out, but man, coming out of that pandemic, I know we don't want to talk about it, but it really changed everyone. And I would say like everyone on earth is not the same as they were before that season. And
sure.
I think like a really simple, we talk about a pleasure mindset a lot, a really simple thing that you can do your successes, however small they feel. If you can start to switch that mindset for yourself and say, you know, what feels good? Okay, what's one thing I did successfully today to feel good? Even if it's starting as small as that. And to reopen that conversation if you're just red zone disconnected from your pleasure completely, right?
Right.
And then I think that it's important. Obviously, if you're listening to this episode, this conversation is something that's important to you. If you're listening to this podcast, this is the topic that's important to you. You understand the domain of this life and how this makes a difference in your life. And what I just want to say is, you know, we're going to get into the conversation of gradually reintroducing embodiment into your daily life. We wanted to give you guys some tangible things to try. And before we get into that, I just wanted to say that progress may take time, right? And that's why we're starting with sensuality instead of sexuality. And I think that, you know, going back to that pleasure research conversation, we need to observe ourselves. I think there's so much power in that. And to notice if there are other needs that need to be met. This, I think, is kind of what you were pointing to, Katie, because a lot of times we misinterpret our need for intimacy as purely sexual. And you might be desiring a different kind of vulnerability that can feed you in a way that isn't traditional masturbation. And so I wanted to get into that conversation a bit of things that you can do to open that door to embodiment, to sensuality, to, you know, feeling, damn, I'm sexy again, right? And know that it's a progression and it takes time. So I think that one of the conversations we have a lot between the three of us and something is, it's really, you know, something that you can start doing to reconnect to your body, which is where the sensuality lives, is re-engaging in your senses in your daily life. And it can be as simple as a sexy playlist, engage your ears and dance with yourself, or a set of new sheets, or a set of, you know, Lulu loungewear, or like a candle. Like, think about the sense that turns you on and start engaging that in your daily life. Maybe you're not ready to whip off your underwear and start rubbing your genitals, right? But you can start engaging your senses again, and it makes a big difference. So if you're listening to this episode, what's your favorite sense that you would like to play with? And how can you start engaging that in your regular life? It could be as simple as when you're brushing your teeth. Try to meet your own gaze in the mirror and give yourself permission to be cute, or flirt with yourself a little, right? Like, turn that mirror time into like something a little enjoyable. It could be as simple as when you're moisturizing your body, instead of just quickly lathering it on, take a few extra minutes, give yourself a little bit of a massage, and, you know, notice. Take a few extra minutes. How does it feel when you touch yourself? You know, if we can really take the regular, mundane, daily moments, and a lot of times we say, people, I don't have time for pleasure. But if we can take the mundane moments in life and start to feed our erotic senses, I think you'll notice a difference. And, really creating that mind-body connection where you have that potential to feel a bit erotic in your regular life if you're not ready to go straight for genital ground zero quite yet.
So I love this conversation. And one of the things that I've been doing that you're making me think of, Lindsay, is really cleansing my body. Like even in the middle of the day, when I get home, in between things, I just rinse or changing my underwear. That's been a big one. I love that. And then
that's hot.
Yeah, throughout the day.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. I so relate to that. I'm so sensual, and like hygiene is a big part of feeling good for me, and creating that potential for more sensuality or possibly self-pleasure. And sometimes I will change my underwear 3 times in a day, or start with no underwear, then put underwear on, then change them again, and like rinse at a time of day where it is cleansing the day, intentionally like picking a time where like before we did the podcast episode, like me and Lindsay, and you actually did too, showering before this, right? To like clear whatever energy from earlier, all the work energy, to really distinguish the new moment. Right. And so especially getting off of work, like that could be such a great way to open that up. I don't blame you. You don't want to touch yourself if you come home from work and you like feel gross. Right. So, cleansing yourself, rinsing off can maybe spark that possibility of like, oh, I'm really yummy now. And like you said, Lindsay, like giving yourself a massage when you rub in lotion after a shower instead of just like doing it quickly. Like finding these little moments, because saying like, I don't have time for self-pleasure is just not true now, because there's everything we do, like putting on lotion. I think we all put on lotion after a shower.
Yeah, sometimes
I think it's more the discipline of remembering.
When she said that, I was like, sometimes I skip it, but it could be as simple as like
Doing
feel
it.
the breeze on your face when you walk outside.
Well, I love the shower conversation because especially for our moms out there, sometimes the shower is the only place they're alone. If that, maybe not even that sometimes. But one of my favorite practices, I do believe water is so calming. And in the shower, notice, right? Notice how the water feels dripping down your skin, or run your fingers through your hair while you're doing the scalp massage. Just start to notice the little sensual things about yourself. Allow your erotic imagination throughout the day to start building up that hunger again. And the next thing I want to say is, okay, so maybe you're in a phase where you are a bit connected, you are a bit embodied. So another thing about embodiment is, so we talked a lot about the mind-body connection. I also want to talk about the sensual physical motion, right? Like being in motion in the sensual and bringing you back into your erotic body. So that could be if you do yoga, really thinking about that, or dancing in your room, or maybe whatever it is, maybe it's roller skating for you, but allowing your erotic movement to be in motion. And if you are looking to, I think another thing, if you feel disconnected from your genitals right now, you can start with the other erogenous zones. If starting with your genitals just feels overwhelming, start with your nipples or the inside of your thighs, or even just rub the back of your neck and see how that feels. There's so much power in the other erogenous zones. If you're like, okay, maybe I'm ready to masturbate, but even if it's just spending 2 minutes in a sensual space with yourself, you can start to build that hunger and open that conversation without putting all the pressure on yourself. And I think that if you do imagine taking a time to just like rub the back of your neck. Like I just did. I'm like, I already felt sex here. Like
as soon as you said that, like I felt something in my body relax as soon as you even said it. Yeah. Right? It's like, oh yeah, I have the power within me.
So I think, so whatever you need to do, be patient with yourself to rebuild up that sensual hunger. And, but I do think that, like we said, I do believe that sensuality is an important part of our mental and physical well-being, our overall sexual health, and our overall health as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
To forget that we are powerful sexual beings, maybe even just this episode was enough to remind you, you are a powerful sexual being and you deserve to feel sexy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe you do masturbate and you have a routine, but that's just it. It feels like a routine. It's like a to-do list. You're grabbing your Hitachi vibrator or the closest vibrator, whatever vibrator's charged. Let's be real. Sometimes it's like that, my vibrator, gals. And you're just getting it in, doing a quickie, right? And you're just like, maybe that's a more sexual side of the erotic blueprint, to like just like go for the orgasm and try to do like 2 minutes or 5 minutes or quick little 10-minute thing. And if that's the case and you've kind of been feeling like, gosh, I really need a revamp here, like you can feel the routine in that, you can feel the like lack of fulfillment in it. I want to talk to you about changing your context around masturbating. So instead of it being something to do, a routine for the orgasm, right? Exerting your sexual energy, turning it into a ritual and leaning more on your sensual energy. Go figure, this whole episode's really about that, right? And so when we go from routine to ritual, we're really stepping out of masculine and stepping into feminine, going into forcing, into receiving. And pleasure does require space to feel, tune in. And so, if you have the opportunity to create a little more time for yourself, to create more of a ritual or even like a ceremony, you could say, for yourself, I really want to introduce that idea of like making love to yourself instead of masturbating or fucking yourself, making love to yourself. And if you really want to be desired or made love to or be lusted after, well, starting with being able to lust after yourself, to desire yourself, to make love to yourself can be a really empowering practice. So I want to go over 3 specific tips to make love to yourself, getting it out of this conceptual, really beautiful, oh, cool, good for you, okay, let's get real. Like what does making love to yourself look like? So there's 3 components. There's the lead up, there's the sex itself, which we're going to distinguish components of the sex itself, and then aftercare and integration. Think about when you're with a lover and you have sex. How shitty is it when that person just gets up and just leaves? Or if just imagine you're banging, you had great sex,
Back
and you're
to
just
work.
like, all right, cool, bye now.
Suck and fuck.
Yep.
So, right. So how we treat ourselves, we hear this statement of like how we talk to ourselves. We might be nice to others, but how we talk to ourselves can be like mean. Well, look at that in this context. How we take care of ourselves after we fuck ourselves or make love to ourselves is pretty quintessential. You wouldn't want your lover to just dip. And so, in terms of that, this mind-body connection, we can actually tap into the pure power that's available to our sexual energy, where it's not just checking something off a list. It's not just getting the satisfaction of orgasm, but we can be really intentional with our energy and manifest, higher vibes or things that we want, or continue creating momentum around this sensual empowerment. So I want to go into each of the components, starting with the lead up. So this is really your opportunity to connect with yourself and your space, create the scene. What are some sensual self-care practices? Like Lindsay mentioned earlier, scented candles, oils, right? But creating a very comfortable environment that feels good to you, your happy place. You might want to buy things in preparation for this. Maybe food to prepare a meal for yourself, or maybe a new toy. The lead up is very important. The lead up is the priming to the whole experience. Think about when you go on a date with a lover, when they're texting you maybe a couple days leading up to it, or the day that I can't wait to see you. There's romancing. We forget to romance ourselves. So thinking about, what do I want to bring into my time with myself? that romance. We would want to do that for the partner we're sleeping with, right? Think about that person and send them good messages throughout the day. Way to really prime the whole experience with romance, and romance is a real key ingredient of sensuality. So the second part of this is the sex itself. But we don't just want to begin with like clitoral stimulation or penetration. Think about your lover. Again, do you want to just get straight to banging? We're trying to break free from that limitation, that pleasure can only exist in this quick and fast-paced environment. No, pleasure requires the space. So starting with foreplay with yourself, how you treat yourself is a reflection of like how you want to be treated by others. So if you want others to romance you in the bedroom and give you the space for your full pleasure so that you could have even deeper orgasms, well, then you're going to want your partner to give you some foreplay, yeah? How pissed would you be if that person's like, great, I'm going in? No.
Hope you're ready.
Fuck off, right? No, get the fuck out of here. No way. So start, and I really recommend at least 20 minutes of non-penetrative stimulation. And then I even like waiting 10 minutes before any clit stimulation. So really playing with the labia minora and the labia majora, and maybe squeezing the inner thighs and like waiting 10 minutes before even touching the clitoris, right? And then waiting another 10 minutes to even go create some penetrative motion. This creates this buildup of energy and tension, the turn on, building that lust for yourself. The point is to get yourself to a point where you are begging for it. You're like, oh, let me do it now. And you can really play with edging so that you can extend your orgasms. If you want to really focus on strengthening your orgasms, you can just, once you're finally ready for the penetration, or what, if you're just doing straight clitoral, good for you too. But if you're about to orgasm, don't. Stop at the top. Wait, hold it, pull it back. Create that tension. So we've done a great episode where we talked about edging. It's episode 214, how to pleasure yourself to the erotic blueprints with intimacy coach Jessie Fresh. So highly recommend you check that episode out. And also something that might be fun is gather all your toys, all your favorite toys, have them around the bed like a little orgy. You know,
Toy orgy.
Little toy orgy, a torgy. And that way, you know, if one dies, another one's accessible. I always like to put a towel down. You never know what could happen, right? And just having your options, having everything be easy at your fingertips, that space, right? That already thought out, like you really are thinking about yourself, like having multiple toys, because of course the toy's going to die, right? And then you're going to be like, I got to go search through your drawer. Fuck that. Keep the toys around you. Have a few. Prepare for that. Because the more you put into it and think about yourself, the more yourself's going to notice that and be like, wow, thanks. Thanks, queen. Thanks for good looking out. Like, that's how we want to treat our people we're dating, our partners, right? Like, oh my God, you thought about me? People love that. Well, so do ourselves. We love that too. It turns us the fuck on. So the other thing you can do with your climax in the sex part to make this experience, shall I even say maybe spiritual, like playing with the mind-body connection, a little visualization. So this is very advanced, but it's super simple. It's a visualization. It's known as onking. We did an episode on it, episode 140, Sacred Sex Part 1 with Elizabeth April. And the idea is that as you climax, once you finally let yourself climax, with edging, you want to hold the climax back 3 times before you finally climax. So once you are ready to climax, you imagine the energy shooting through your head, through the top of your crown, circulating back into your heart, through the crown, back into the heart. There's a circle of energy for the crown to the heart. And this mind-body connection we make while we're climaxing, you can lengthen your orgasms a lot. You can have like more contractions with this. It's really fun. Now, that's some fun ways to really maximize your pleasure during the experience. But I just want to say, orgasm doesn't have to be the goal. But if you're an advanced masturbator and you're here in this episode being like, no, I want some like top-notch orgasm tips, bitches. Got you. We got you. Those are them.
Or if you're like, this sounds amazing, but I don't have time in my life, maybe you do this once a quarter.
Exactly.
Like
right.
you get a hotel room, you get a babysitter for the kids, and you do this. Like this is a little self retreat you do once a quarter or something.
I'm gonna be. That's great. And even as a non-mom, I do this for myself once a month. I'm not even a mom. So I think for moms, like once a quarter is a great goal. Enroll the husband. Say, hubby, I need an hour, right? Or whatever.
Or get yourself a hotel, to have a little staycation with yourself. What if more people, I actually am excited about that idea. Like allow yourself to go get a hotel room. If you have the resources, right? Go get a hotel room, get out of the house, or enroll your husband to take the kids to the park for 2 or 3 hours once a quarter where you get uninterrupted time for yourself. You do deserve that. You are important to that, and do whatever you want with that time. But like, I'm just inspired by this conversation because, like I said, I told myself I haven't been masturbating, but what if I actually set like a little stay-at-home sensual retreat for myself once a quarter?
It's not
attainable. I feel I could do that.
It's not about quantity. It's about quality with everything we do. And I don't think our masturbation practice is any different. We got to take that pressure off. Like the beginning of this episode is so poignant, because then we can really be like, oh, cool. Well, what do I want to create now? What works for me? Because all of our pleasure is so different and our lives are so different and our histories and our makeup and all of that. And so it's like, So the third part to the making
and I just
love.
want to add one more thing because I'm just thinking about the listeners who are like, that's good for you. So I want to challenge you a bit. If you're thinking, I don't even have time to do something, to set aside 3 hours for myself once a quarter, I say to you, what would you say to a friend who wasn't able to prioritize themselves like that, even every once in a while, right? What is in the way of you prioritizing yourself at least once a quarter and having an experience like this? Because that's where you can start this conversation. What do we need to move so that you get that everybody deserves to have this in their lives?
Absolutely. And it can be 3 hours.
And I'll say this, it's not selfish, right? Because here's the ripple effect that happens. When we feel, I would say a really good marker is if you feel resentful that your own pleasure cup is not full. And if you're feeling resentful, you are not being the best friend, partner, daughter, wife, whatever, right? If you're feeling resentful, then you are having needs that are not being met. Because when you imagine how much of a better friend, partner, husband, whatever, if you actually did do this once a quarter and you came back and you were like, wow, I am so supported that I was able to do this. Imagine the difference that would make in your life. So just a little challenge if you're like, I can't even do that.
That's so great. Yeah. And I also want to put it out there too, for people who are really busy, there is something to look at if you can't carve out an hour for yourself a week. There's something to look at. There's nothing wrong. There's no judgment. There's definitely no shame game to play with that. There's just an opportunity of something to look at. What conversations are missing for you to have that sacred time for yourself, for you to do whatever the fuck. If you don't want to make love to yourself, that's fine. But maybe there's a Pilates class you want to take, or
a book you want to read,
a fucking book, or you want to go do an acupuncture appointment, right? Or you have a doctor's appointment. I mean, I know so many people who cancel doctor's appointments because they get too busy. Who the fuck? What the fuck? No. So let's just look at, it's just conversations that are missing in your environment so that you can have that. But if you have the limiting belief that you're separate from this conversation somehow, that you don't deserve it, that there's something else that's more important, starting there and just acknowledging that belief is running the show.
Yeah.
That belief is running the show. We can turn down the volume on that. And I actually want to say, if you are having a hard time turning the volume down on a limiting belief around pleasure, that you don't have time for it, you don't deserve it, that's for other people, that's for pretty people, whatever the fuck it is, that please write us in the word support. Please email us at pleasurepositiveliving@gmail.com or DM us on our Instagram, pleasurepositiveliving, if you would like to overcome that pleasure block so that you can start making more time for pleasure and being more connected to your sensuality and start being that sexual badass that you are.
Yeah.
Now, the third part to the lovemaking session is the aftercare and integration. We talked about that a little bit in the beginning when I gave you the overview, but just represencing yourself. Here are some ways that you can give yourself aftercare and integrate your sexual experience. Lay with yourself after you orgasm. Lay there. Take a beat, babe. Take a beat. Put your hand on your heart. Breathe. Breathe all that orgasmic energy and keep breathing it in. It's life force energy. It's creative energy. You could keep circulating that energy around you in like a bubble. And you just sit with yourself, hold yourself, hug yourself. And when you're ready to wash up, because cleansing again, right? We talked about cleansing earlier, is a really great practice. Water like holds memory. Water is really purifying. So you can go into the bathroom, you can go in the mirror. And after you have sex with a partner or a lover, you're like, that was great. That was so hot. You comment on it, right? There's commentary about how it was. Do that with yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror. Do a little mirror work. Be like, that was hot, babe. Great. And you could tell yourself, you could maybe light a candle again, right? Play on your senses, take a shower with a shower steamer, wash yourself off. And as you wash yourself, think about things you're grateful for about yourself or about that pleasure practice you just did. And one thing I just want to point out that I forgot to mention earlier, and I'm now looking at my prop I brought this mirror out. This is a handheld yoni mirror. During the foreplay, right? During foreplay, some people are very visual. Bring this down to your genitals and watch yourself. This is before you do the clitoral stimulation or the penetrative stimulation. Watching yourself get juicier as you turn yourself on, watching your genitals start to breathe and move, there's something beyond the cognitive. This connection that's being made by watching and seeing what's happening as you turn on, how your genitals open and communicate back with you. And, as you get juicier and juicier, this can be, if you are a visual person and watching yourself get creamy is sexy for you, keep it there the whole time. You could prop up your mirror and the whole time you make love to yourself, watch what's happening down there. This is for my people who love porn. If you love watching porn and like the penetrative part of it, this may really change the game for you in terms of like being able to stay turned on throughout the session, having a grounding point to look at that is connected to like something sexual, which is relatable. Because I think a big distinction here is like it can be uncomfortable to connect with our sexuality and very easy to be sexual and just orgasm quickly. And if you fall in that bracket where you've been, oh yeah, I masturbate all the time, but something's been missing. Like it's not just about the orgasm and getting the fix. Just because if we're just utilizing our sexual energy, we know there's multiple erotic blueprints. And there's an opportunity to play off of, our sensual energy, and there's power there.
Yeah, and that it brings it back to that sense-bound exploration, right? Like that's a great tip for the visual people, but like don't be afraid to get creative. Like what are the senses that turn you on? Is it audio? Is it music? Is it sensual music? I know you recommended without lyrics, or is it that audio porn, or is it having someone touch you or touching yourself all over? Like really experiment with. I know that was a great piece of education for all three of us, was that sense-bound education, because most of us think it's watch some porn, stick a vibrator
stick
down
it in there.
But if you stick it in there, but if you can really start to explore, you might be surprised at what sense is actually your strongest turn on. So that's a great place to start exploration, whether you're in the the sensual exploration or the straight up sexual exploration. It's a great thing to try to just experiment with.
Oh, I loved this episode. This is so great. I'm re-inspired. I feel like you both are re-inspired in a way. And I think this conversation's really important to have. I would love to know from our listeners if you tried anything from this episode, anything that's particular that's really resonated with you. Like share and write in. Like
send us a DM.
We literally love to hear that. We love to know what works for you. And as always, like if there's something you want us to talk more about, maybe there was something that we talked about that we just hinted to in this episode and you want to learn more about, let us know. Like we'll create an episode around that. We're really committed to bringing back the basics, and really like your self-pleasure is the foundation of your sexual empowerment. So yeah, this was so awesome. Lindsay, well done on knowing. Lindsay's one of the most intuitive witches I've ever met. She's like, I know what we need to do for the next podcast episode. And it was so clear. And immediately I was like, yes, this is the conversation.
Well, I'm inspired. This wasn't even planned, but I'm gonna go on at least one self-care staycation this year. Like, get myself a hotel. Like, I'm gonna do it at least once this year. That's what I'm taking on. I never thought to do that before.
Finding the small moments to stay connected to myself throughout the day. I think that's getting in a rhythm of that, like not a routine where I like have to, but just like a rhythm, like a flow.
Yes, like in your daily life.
Yeah, even it's like, I'm just feeling the grass on your feet or the breeze on your face, like you did that for you to stay connected to yourself and your humanness.
Yeah. And celebrate that win. Like, intentionally, you did that for yourself. There's a difference between, like intentionally making time for the sensual moments that are already built into your life and noticing them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, we hope that this episode made a difference for you, Clitorati. As Madison said, please write us in, send us a DM, send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. If there is anything you would like for us as your pleasure coaches to do future episodes on, let us know. We will go out there and put together the episodes that will make the most impact for you. Our commitment in 2024 as your pleasure coaches is really to make the most impact, give you tangible things that you can do to support your pleasure positive life. And with that, Clitorati, we're going to see you next Tuesday.
Bye-bye.